Greetings from Tema, Ghana.
Greetings from Iowa City, Iowa, in the United States.
Greetings from Aswan, Egypt.
Greetings from Canada.
Greetings from Conifer in the United States.
Greetings from Ghanim, Morocco.
Greetings from Cosenza, Italy. I'm Ajar.
I'm Luca, and welcome to Team Harmony's Hey, what are you going to do?
Hello everybody, and welcome to our 5th broadcast of Team Harmony's Hate, What Are You Going to Do? My name is Julia.
And I'm Angel. Over the past few episodes, we've had show themes. We've looked at the treatment of the LGBTQ community worldwide, civil rights and equality, the arts, and today we're going to look at the status of women.
I'm Ellie. When we put the word out on this topic, we didn't realize the intensity of the stories we'd receive. So this show is going to feel different.
And because of that, we decided to split this episode into 2 parts. For this part, we'll look at stories from Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Ghana.
We'll also speak to an expert on women's rights working for policy and social change around the world.
But to start our show today, we've got a story that's difficult to watch. We feel as though we should say viewer discretion is advised. So let's head over to Ahmad in Afghanistan.
Hello everyone, I'm Ahmed Nassar, the founder of Ahmed Nassar's Literacy Center and a youth reporter from Afghanistan. The main reason behind making this video is to showcase the agony and misery that women undergo, as 1 in 3 women experience some sort of physical, sexual, or verbal violence, and sometimes the cases can be severe. In this video, see how women are treated in Afghanistan.
Violence against women is one of the most serious human rights issues in Afghanistan. Each year, a significant number of sexual, physical, and domestic violence cases are reported, which encompasses beating women to death or severely cutting their noses or ears. Sabira, a 30-year-old woman, says she left her husband because she beat her every day, and even attempted to cut her fingers using the fact that she's a woman.
Remember, my father-in-law and brother-in-law were holding my hands, and my husband hit the pressure cooker at my back.
In 2015, a woman called Farhunda was brutally burned by males for being accused of have burned the Quran Sharif. As you can see in the video, she's pushed down and kicked repeatedly. She was beaten so badly that her face was stained with blood. In this disturbing footage, she's pulled up to the roof and then struck down. They beat her. The slaughter continues. They run her over with this car. Then they throw Farhunda in the riverbed where she is stoned with large slabs of rock. Later, she is set on fire and burned to death. On the other hand, those who survive in Afghanistan prefer to die rather than living. Sitara, a mother of 3 children, was asked to give her jewelry to her husband, but when she refused to do so, he cut off her lips and nose. She's saying, "He hit me with a stone and then with the handle of a knife." Such deadly and fatal incidents have also led to multiple protests led by women for having a more just and gender-equal world. Sabira expresses how underestimated she feels as she was deprived of her rights to work, study, or exercise control over her freedom.
When the situation was, I decided to tell my husband, but then my husband beat me with iron stick and accused me of doing all this by my own will. Then my in-laws started abusing my daughter and son as well. I couldn't bear this, so I fled the house and city.
Likewise, many of the other women drop out of university or schools once they get married, but after leaving her husband, Sabira expresses gratitude for getting the education she needs now.
Currently, I work as a social organizer for a local civil society organization, and I'm attending a literacy center to get educated. I feel potent enough to defend my rights and live the life I want independent.
In a country where ongoing war and political unrest has never taken a break, the austerity is doubly imperative for women. Follow Team Harmony Foundation for more eye-opening stories on how hate is challenging people around the world.
Ahmad, thank you very, very much for that. As intense as it was, we just wanted to say that you did a great job putting that piece together.
Now let's go to Pakistan, where Sandeed teaches us that food distribution is a form of gender inequality, and that leads to major medical issues for women that they are then blamed for.
Why only the men need better nutrition? Why are the women our second priority? When will we consider those women who give birth to the generations we are proud of? This is Sandeep Sheikh from Team Harmony reporting from Lahore, Pakistan, a place with many untold stories. When talking about C and D classes, more than 50% of women and girls in Pakistan are anemic and have difficulties during pregnancy. Over 40% of children are underweight, where a big reason is the unequal food distribution between men and women, especially in mothers. Food distribution is based on gender, which ultimately leads to men having better nutritional intake.
Women are never considered as first priority in our society. I got married to a family where importance is given to the male gender over females. I have to wait for the male members of family to eat first. There was no concept of house helper in the family, so I had to take responsibility of all tasks. I was considered responsible for all household activities. I was the one who has to do everything, whether it be cooking, taking care of the house, everything. It became the basic reason behind I got malnutrition and I could not conceive. When I asked to so many different doctors, consulted them, they told me the same reason, being underweight, malnutrition, for not conceiving the baby, and could not carry a baby for such a long time. And this was the main cause of conflict between me and my husband, and we finally got divorced.
The story clearly highlights that how maternal undernutrition results in difficulties. This is just a single story. Consider the thousands of undernutrition women out there that are collectively a reason of 40% underweight children, where half of them are affected by stunting and nearly 9% of them wasted.
Usually girls get to listen this that your brother needs more nutrition as he has to go out for work. You don't need that much of nutrition. How is it possible that God has created structure of both male and female the same, but one needs more nutrition than the other? We are running awareness campaigns in Punjab for this. In fact, there is a need to launch these campaigns throughout Pakistan. God's sake, it is my request to you all, being a mother, don't discriminate male and female.
There is a dire need to look up to our policies in order to improve the nutritional status of women. The government of Pakistan and World Food Programme in 2018 launched an initiative allocating budget of 10 billion to improve the nutritional situation going on in the country. The worst form of gender inequality is that food distribution is now based on gender, which ultimately leads to men having better nutritional intake, rather than those women who are responsible for making up generations. Correcting the gender inequality and cutting the deep roots of patriarchy in our society is now a much bigger challenge. Let us play our part in this regard and end the discrimination and save our generation.
Thank you, Sandeed, for shining a light on a topic that most people are not aware of. Working on the show, we knew we'd need an expert to guide us through this maze, so we reached out to Dr. Lina Abirafeh, the Executive Director of the Arab Institute for Women at the Lebanese American University based in New York and Lebanon.
I don't think that we have any time to waste, because we are in a world that allows a girl to be married and then to be raped every 2 seconds. So we've got a lot to do with 2030 and our agenda. We've got to eliminate legal discrimination. We've got to change all these unfair social norms. We have to bring women into politics and the economy and leadership and decision-making in every aspect of life.
So now, Lina, tell me, what got you started in this career? What was your trigger moment?
Well, I think I was born into it. I come from a mixed background. I'm Lebanese and Palestinian. I was raised in Saudi Arabia and then in the US in Washington, D.C. When I was 14 years old, I took a class in high school called Comparative Women's History. And it wasn't about women's history as much as it was about violence against women that has been perpetrated throughout history. And that just blew my mind. It set off a bomb in my heart. And I've never been able to forget about it. And hearing about female genital mutilation, about women burning themselves on their husband's funeral pyres, about the pervasive and very hidden nature of intimate partner violence, rape as a weapon of war, women breaking their ribs to fit into corsets so they can conform to beauty standards of whatever age. I was devastated as a kid, and I'm still devastated today. So that was my moment.
So most people get mad about things and do nothing. You did something and took your anger to harness it and drive your career forward. What can young people learn from that?
It wasn't anything deliberate on my part. It was just this feeling of rage at the injustice. And I said, I don't know, I'm 14. I don't know what to do. I don't care what I do. I will do anything. I have to do something, because for me, doing nothing was the greater crime.
Why do you think that statistics do not alarm people to want to improve the treatment of women worldwide?
You know, statistics can be very compelling in some ways. Like when I talk about violence against women, I tell people 1 in 3 women and girls worldwide will experience some form of violence in their lifetime. And people shrug and they say, well, you know, we don't get it. And I say, wait, listen. Pick 3 women in your life, 3 women that you know, that you love, that you care about, that you want to protect. It doesn't matter who they are. And when they pick those 3 women, I say, well, all right, now pick 1 of those 3. And then I go on to explain that that's the one who is likely to experience some form of violence in her lifetime. When people hear personal stories and anecdotes, it brings life to the numbers. And when you listen, and when you turn to women and girls and you say, have you ever been uncomfortable with somebody, or touched in a way that you didn't want, or were you ever the recipient of a comment that crossed the line for you? Just about every single one of us will say yes. How many is that?
I think it's so right to turn it personal, because then if you say to a man, well, it's not about the women, it is about the women in your life, your mother, your sister, your aunt, your daughter, anybody, that's when it can make people believe it more and actually want to do something.
You know, we have a responsibility to care for each other and respect each other as humans. Like, it doesn't have to be the human that's related to you. Do you know what I mean? So very often with men, they'll say something like, oh, I didn't realize how difficult things are for women until I had a daughter. Do you want someone touching your butt on the subway? No. There you go.
Or honking at you on the street even. It's just unnecessary.
Right?
Okay.
I mean, it's logical. Anybody who says, well, I'm afraid to get into the elevator with you because who knows what'll happen. Well, I know what'll happen. Nothing, because you're a decent human being and you respect me and my space, and we treat each other with dignity and bodily autonomy and integrity. The end.
So what are some first steps young people can take in their own communities?
I think the first thing is to open your eyes, to pay attention, to really understand the experience of the other. What's interesting is a lot of times people say they don't care because they actually don't know. But when they learn, when they understand, when they start to open their eyes, you know, you never close them again. You can do lots of different things. You can volunteer, you can campaign, you can just be an informed and decent human. I think that's already a great thing to be in this world, especially now. And I think that kind of behavior is contagious. And if people see you as a decent person, they're probably more likely to exhibit some decency themselves. And that's a message that can spread.
Now, Lina, do you have to be Superwoman to make a change?
So I think we've got to be realistic about what change is. And when we are realistic about what we mean by change, then we also recognize that you don't have to be a superhero to do something. Change yourself. You know, you don't need to be a superwoman to do that.
Do you have any advice for young women trying to make it in a male-dominated field?
Courage and conviction. You know, it is never going to be easy. There are always going to be things thrown in your way. But I think, you know, an open mind, an open heart, and a real sense of your boundaries, right? And what is right and wrong. As a young person navigating the working world or wherever you might be, to not think that you have to go at it alone. There are people, whether of your peer group or older, who will reach out, who will help, who will open doors, who will be a support or an ally or a mentor or a champion.
Is there anything else you would like to add?
I think this is such an extraordinary project. You know, I was watching some of the videos and really compelled by how people are using their voice to amplify the voice of others. And I love the effort and the passion that goes into it. And I think fusing passion and purpose into these kinds of messages is really the best way to reach people. So hats off to you all.
Thank you. Well, it's been an honor talking to a fellow Lebanese woman. Thank you so much for joining us today and for all of your insight.
Honor-killing crimes are still very common in South Asian, Middle Eastern, and North African communities. Ajwa of Pakistan introduces us to a young woman who escaped her family in order to save her own life.
Hey, this is Ajwa Aman, and today I'm going to highlight the most crucial topic, that is honor killing. Honor killing means killing of a person by their own family just because they believed he or she disgraced the honor of family. Freedom of expression is the basic right of every human being, and love is natural. But in states like underdeveloped countries, due to lack of literacy rate, such practices are common, and immediate measures should be adopted to stop honor killing. Sarah is not her real name, is strictly bound to stay home, and has been deprived from her basic rights. She cannot even go to school or college just because her family thinks that she disgraced to their family honor.
Co-education is strictly prohibited in my family, especially for a girl. Only my mother and brother supported me studying in a co-education system. Once I was on an internship, my male friends decided to dine out. Few of my relatives saw me there and they created a scene at my house by humiliating my parents. They claimed that my parents has spoiled me and I would become a stain to everyone's dignity one day. I was kept locked in my own room where I was brutally beaten every day. I was not allowed to go to university to talk to anyone, and they used to scare me with the threats like either I would be married or murdered. Under these circumstances, my mother supported me and helped me to escape the house. I got admitted in a hostel that was too far from my own house. I completed my education there, and now if I ever go back to my own house, I would get killed.
Honor killing crimes are very common in South Asian, Middle Eastern, and North African communities, whereas women's behavior is the key to preserving a family's honor. Last year, there were more than 1,000 incidents in Pakistan. These include beating, abduction, and even murders. Now, we will get an expert advice from Salman Abid, who is analyst, social worker, and executive director at IDEA.
In order to address honor killings, we will have to review our laws. We will have to remove any demerits in it and bring in new amendments. The primary purpose of law is to protect women, men, and the overall society. Whenever there is a need to make amendment, we should do it. Even if there is a need for new law, we should produce it. In addition to that, we need to raise awareness that we as a society have to respect and protect women.
The government definitely need to take some preventive measures in order to preserve women's rights. We should also play a part to end this discrimination and let all the women in the world to enjoy their rights that have been provided to them by the Supreme Authority and the state as well, so that peace can be assured. Signing off, Ajwa Aman.
Thank you, Ajwa. Nice job. We would like to finish this show on a lighter note. As the world celebrated women this past March, Joseph looked at the works of one outstanding young woman, claiming her space in the world of action sports photography in Ghana.
As the world celebrates women this past month, I have been looking at the works of one outstanding young woman who is claiming her space in Ghana's landscape of photography. Have you ever been caught up in a situation where you were just doing what you loved, but immediately realized that you were entering uncharted waters? That is exactly the story of sports photographer Mary Eshun. Mary has been a devout lover of photography ever since she got a camera from her uncle in her primary school days. It is this compulsion and her interest in sports that has landed her in an overwhelmingly male-dominated career.
Lots of things inspired me to do sports photography. I love football. Football is one of the sports I follow a lot and taking pictures. What actually inspired me to do sports photography is when I started my internship at CMG, I had to produce the evening show And getting local materials to produce the evening show was sometimes difficult. So I started going to match day games, taking some short videos and pictures to produce my show. So that's how I got into the photography aspect.
The sports storyteller is among the A-list of women in photojournalism in Ghana. Her decision to make sports arenas her second office has propelled her to working in some of the continent's top competitions, such as the AFCON qualifiers, the Tokyo 2020 Africa Zone 2 swimming qualifiers, as well as the Ghana Premier League and the Ghana Women's Premier League. But all these have had to come with its own challenges.
There are a lot of challenges in this field. Sometimes clubs don't want to work with you because you are a female. You can't travel with a team, lounge with them at the same hotel, and sometimes people also feel like you're a woman and you can't do the job well. Wages in this field, I would say it's not fair. It's not really fair in this job we do, because there are clubs who don't invest in pictures. You have to depend on someone offering you a contract to work with.
Although she is young, Mary has already worked with some of the top African national football teams, including the Sudanese national team. She sees a bright future despite the periodic bullying and framing she gets just because she is a woman.
What I will tell girls or women in a male-dominated place or field is there will always be questions, the doubts, and if you can really do the job. So I let my job do the talking, because as a female you always have to put in that extra effort than what others are doing. You have to stand out and be the best at what you do.
Being the woman in the man's world, Mary continues to use her lens to tell the positive stories about other women in sports. Reporting for Team Harmony, my name is Joseph Amwakwata from Accra, Ghana.
It's always a pleasure to hear from you, Joseph. Awesome, inspiring story.
This brings us to the conclusion of part 1 of the status of women around the world, and we hope you were just as moved as we were.
Well, that's it for our show, but if you stick around, you'll be able to chat with our guests from today's broadcast in our live post-show discussion.
Please remember to check out our website at teamharmonyfoundation.org for part 2 of this topic coming soon. So until next time, peace.
Hello everyone, I'm Ellie Barquette and I am your host for tonight's live discussion. I'm excited to be here with our host tonight. We have the Executive Director of the Arab Institute for Women at the Lebanese American University, Lina Abirafeh. And Lina messaged me right before the show saying she needed to change her shirt for this special occasion. So if you'd love to show us that and explain, that would be wonderful.
All right, you ready for an explanation?
Please.
Fantastic. First of all, I'm delighted to be here. I'm so thrilled with the show. I love being a part of it. This shirt is a deliberately provocative effort to create a conversation around the word feminist. So most of you probably can't read Arabic. I hardly can. I'm going to show you again that it says feminist in Arabic. Reason being that people assume that feminism is something that is imported and imposed, like a Western cultural concept that we all suddenly have to comply by. But that isn't true. And so what we wanted to say with this shirt is that feminism exists everywhere, in every space, in every time, and is indigenous to those places. And that women have been fighting for equal rights since the beginning of time, absolutely everywhere. So there you go.
Thank you for that.
And wear it.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you put it on. And just as a reminder to everyone at home who doesn't know, it's just a very frustrating conversation when the word feminist comes up. Just because it's feminist doesn't mean feminine. So please listen to the rest of this conversation. And Our other guest we have here is Fatma El Refeh, who is a Women to Women alumna from Egypt. And Women to Women is an international leadership conference here in Boston. And Fatma has made her way to the US to study government and environmental studies with a minor in women and gender studies at Franklin and Marshall College in Pennsylvania. So hello, Fatma.
Hello, Ellie. Thank you so much for this opportunity to be here. I'm delighted with the show, and I'm just really happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining. Okay, so throughout this broadcast, we have seen some devastating ways women are being treated in parts of the world, but we are all here to share their stories and to make a difference and combat hate in all its forms. So let's get started. Lina, we're just going to jump right into it. Is gender equality a concern for men?
Absolutely. First of all, the challenge is that inequality works against everyone. Even men are losing out from the fact that we have these gendered stereotypes that we're expected to live by. I mean, aside from the very obvious, men are denied, and boys are denied rights to the full range of emotions, are denied rights to their full range of sexuality and gendered orientations and identities and expressions. They're denied rights to active parenthood. I mean, there's so many cultures with the boys will be boys and boys don't cry kind of baggage. I mean, aren't we sick of it? Don't we want to shed all of that and get rid of our pink and blue crap and just start to live and express ourselves in a way that we want? So, I mean, for starters, obviously. The other problem is that throughout time, since the beginning of time, the world has historically disadvantaged women and girls. We have been treated as less than since day one, from the fetus to the funeral, and that's a fact. So the problem with that is we've got a historic imbalance that we have to rectify. But guess who's responsible for rectifying it? People like me. Why? Why does the so-called gender person or the feminist activist or the women's rights expert have to do all the work to solve the problem that she didn't cause in the first place? So in the end, everybody's got to step up and do something to fix this, because equality is going to be better for all of us. To me, it's a no-brainer.
Absolutely. And you brought up a very important point that women do experience some disadvantages in their life from birth till death. So can you please explain some of those disadvantages?
As a female fetus, you are more likely to be aborted because you're not wanted. There are cultures and customs where girls are fed less, as we heard, are treated poorly, are expected to stay at home, are given less opportunities for school, less access to healthcare, less freedom, less mobility, less ability to play, to do sports, much less to be a sports photographer like Mary. She was awesome. The point is that we're still restricted in every aspect of our lives. Don't go there, don't do that, don't wear this, why did you, it's your fault. I mean, the shame and blame is exhausting. We have no freedom. It's like we're suffocated. I think it's just an injustice. Even when we have conversations with people who are so-called liberated and modern, you say, oh, the doctor, and you assume it's a man, and the nurse, and you assume it's a woman. I mean, we're still shackled by all of these kinds of roles and stereotypes. We don't have women in leadership. We hardly have women heads of state. Where are the women CEOs? There are more CEOs in the world named John than there are women. I mean, that makes no sense to me. Women are discriminated against in every stage, in education and their literacy levels, what they can and can't do. And don't even get me started about violence. I'm sure you're going to ask me that. So I'll pause. I'll take a breath for now.
Okay. So Fatma, what changes do you hope to see for women and girls in your lifetime?
There's a lot I would love to see change. I mean, violence against women, sexual harassment, even the way that we're brought up. We're brought up as separate from men. We're from the minute that we can speak, from the minute that we can walk, we're always told girls should wear dresses. Girls should play with these certain type of toys. Girls should only play certain type of sports. So from the minute that we can live the world, the moment where we can actually live our lives, we're put in a box and we cannot get out from easily. Especially if, I mean, and this is, I'm not speaking of a certain culture, because this is all over the world, but it's very predominant in everywhere. And other than this, obviously beauty standards. It's been causing it's been causing mental health illnesses, body image, body shaming, and a lot of things that are really horrible for girls, and not only for girls but also for boys and men. And this is, I would love to bring up the point that Lina said, that men are really important to be brought into the conversation, because we're here, like, we're discriminating. We're not letting people live the way that they want to live their lives. We're not letting them live freely. And we're not just talking about girls here, we're also talking about boys. Because just as we set standards for girls, the opposite way is set for boys. And it's just really constraining, and it's really hard for everyone, not just like men or girls, to live the life that they want.
Thank you for that. Now, Lina, how can people be better advocates for women around them?
You know, I think building on what both Fatima and I are saying, like, guys, let's talk about guys. Guys have to step up, right? You can't just let things happen. I mean, I am going to give you the benefit of the doubt, boys, and believe that you are decent human beings and you know right from wrong, and not all of you are perpetrators and predators and creeps. All right, so let's start with that premise. We're not accusing all of you, but you are too silent. And when you see things, or when you do things, or when things happen in front of you, you have an obligation as a human on this planet to stop it, to do something about it. I mean, there are so many conversations about how to be an active bystander. Don't put yourself in harm's way. Don't create more risk or increase any violence. No, I'm not saying throw yourself in front of the moving vehicle. What I am saying is that there are tactics, there are ways, there are things you can say, there are opportunities to engage, to intervene, to disrupt, to change the dynamic, to turn to one of your guy friends and say, you know what, enough. Leave her alone. That's not cool. So have some courage. Be that guy, because we're doing it until we lose our voices. I mean, I am screaming, I'm howling into the void all the time, because we have to be better. And also, let's look at violence in its totality. You know, how you treat other people, how you treat the environment, how you treat animals, how you treat just about everything. Like, is there a way that we can live with dignity and respect and compassion? I'd like to think so. You know, do you need to have a mother or a sister in order to do so? No, you do not. You all have it, and we all have it. It's just that we choose not to act on it. So where is our courage? That's what I'd like to see.
Absolutely. And I think that it is so important to stop changing the message to don't wear that, don't act like that, don't say that, because stop doing those actions are what we should be focusing on.
Absolutely. If anything happens to me, suddenly it's my fault. Why were you there? Why were you drinking? And what were you wearing? And you know he's dangerous, and call me when you get home, and don't go to the bathroom by yourself, and carry your keys like this so you can poke somebody in the eye. No, I want to be able to walk outside anywhere, anytime, in any space, in any outfit, and be totally safe, in full freedom, because that's what I deserve and nothing less.
Absolutely. So we did mention these traditional roles for men and women. So how can we change them in society?
Oh, is this a Lina question also? All right. Well, look, I think there are people, men and women, who are active within their communities that are changing those roles. You know, it is a hard thing to do for anybody from the outside of any culture, any place, to parachute in and say, oh my goodness, this is savage, you must stop this practice. We have to look for the people who are already doing work on the inside. And you got to trust me on this one. They are already there. They are fighting the fight against intimate partner violence, against female genital mutilation, against sexual harassment, against whatever it is. It's the insiders who are doing the hard work, and we need to give them the tools and the resources and to help them amplify their voices so they can make meaningful change, because they're already doing it. So the assumption that, you know, this is only over there, or this doesn't happen here, it's not my problem, all of that stuff is rubbish. No, it's everybody's problem. We're all interconnected. Everybody's got to deal with this stuff. But as I've said before, you've got to start in the space that you occupy. You know, you're much more powerful doing work in your own family, in your own peer group, in your own community, on your own street, in your own village, than you are going off to far-flung areas. You know, people ask me all the time, oh, you went to Afghanistan for years. Like, I don't want to do that. Or do I have to do that if I want to be an activist? And I say, you don't. You just have to look around you, because actually it exists everywhere. And if you don't see that, you're asleep.
Okay. Thank you. Fatima, do you have anything to add to what Lina is saying?
I would just love to echo one thing that Lina said at the beginning when she was mentioning the feminist part on her shirt, that people always think that feminism or women's right is a Western idea. Like I'm gonna give you an example. So I traveled a lot, and when I do come back and when I'm talking to my parents and we would engage in a difficult conversation, they would always tell me, where did you get these ideas from? It's like, this idea, this is my right. I'm not talking about a Western idea. I'm telling you about what I want. This is my rights, and I would love to talk to you about that. Maybe if you have an opposing point of view, we can talk more about that. I don't want to impose my point of view upon you, but there's a lot of conversations that we need to have, and I would just like, this is going into a cycle, because men, well, not men, well, I would love to acknowledge that not all men, but all women, unfortunately, not all men abuse women, not all men discriminate, not all men sexually harass, but a lot of women, all women have been victims of that. And they would continue teaching their sons these ways, and their daughters would continue to be oppressed, and the cycle goes on until we need to break the cycle. And I think, and this is really the time, we should educate ourselves first and talk to the people around us, our elders, maybe our community leaders. And this is a difficult conversation, like I said, but it needs to happen.
Now, being so young, and I know you've traveled a lot and you said you just did, but going from Egypt to Pennsylvania for school, that's a huge move. So how do you overcome fear in this world and being treated like that?
Yeah, honestly, for me, I did not have a cultural shock, but I had a reverse cultural shock. Because, okay, so I mean, these women face issues all over the world, but it's different from one place to another. Like, for instance, when I was in the UK, I could do some more stuff. Like, I could wear more revealing clothes without being like targeted, without being not just like from guys, but like elders telling me you can't wear that. Like, here, if I do that, elders would like stop me in the street and tell me you can't wear that. So I mean, it's different, but I kind of had a reverse culture shock when I came back home. But I do want to acknowledge that I'm somehow privileged. My parents did allow me to travel, and even though like there are some still like obligations that I would have, there's a lot of things I would need to talk to my parents about. There's a lot of things that that are in my way, but I am privileged to study abroad. But other than that, I would just like think about the reason why I'm doing this in the first place, think about why I'm leaving my family, leaving my home to go study in a different country where I know no one in. And it would just like really help me recharge. And I do hope to come back to Egypt one day and implement what I've been learning and what I've been getting education on, basically.
Absolutely. That's a huge thing to overcome and pick up and move to another country, even just for a semester, let alone you went for a semester and now you're going for the rest of university. So that's huge and takes so much courage. So props to you. Now, Lina, have you specifically done anything to overcome fear throughout your journey?
I think fear is a daily part of this job. It's a part of our work. It's a part of social change. It's a part of pushing boundaries. You know, this is exhausting work that feels like it leads you nowhere. And it is scary because people will push back on it. Like Fatima said, people will push back at the level of your family and the people you love who should be supporting you, society, the government. There is constant pushback, especially now. There's a massive backlash against women's rights and fundamental freedoms. So, you know, on some levels, absolutely. I mean, there is a global fear, and it makes it very difficult to do this work, but it makes it all the more important because then I think about the micro fears, you know, the fear a young girl might have walking on a specific street at a specific time because she knows that there are guys who congregate there and she doesn't feel safe. Or a fear that a girl has of going to school because she's being harassed by her male teacher, or a fear in the workplace of, you know, taking on a certain position and being targeted or worse. I mean, there are so many fears that we have to deal with as women. And so any fear that I might have ever felt personally is nothing compared to that, compared to the injustice that for me is something that I absolutely can't live with and I can't allow. And even though I probably won't see the kind of change I want in my lifetime, it doesn't mean that I'm going to stop trying. In fact, I'll do this until I die. I mean, we are 100 years away from equality. And that's not, you know, a figure that I've made up. That's the global gender gap. And in the Arab region, it's 150 years. So the average is 100 years. Now, I don't know, you guys are younger than me, but you know, if you make it 100 years from now and we achieve equality, please let me know, because I don't think I'm going to live that long, but I also am not willing to wait that long. I feel like we have to get this going. There is no reason why the world's population, with slightly over half female, has failed to achieve equality. I mean, why is this even still on the agenda? Why is this a job for me? Why can't I be doing other things? I love to upcycle furniture. Why can't I do that instead and do the things that bring me joy instead of having to fix all these problems? So any kind of fear that I might have is fully trumped, sorry for use of that word, by the frustration I feel for the injustice that continues to suffocate us and restrict our lives.
Yes, that is such a word to use for this discussion, is frustrating, because I had to get all my frustrations out ahead of time with my coworkers to say, these are the things I can't bring up in tonight's discussion because there's a time and place. But it is just a frustrating conversation, and you get worked up because we are treated like this and we are treated differently. So we don't understand how or why. So that is why we're frustrated. So everyone in the world see these frustrations, and not just in women's rights, but for all the issues we're working on with Team Harmony, and please have this passion and use it. So let's calm down a little bit and talk about what you guys do to calm down. So being in these roles and jobs that are you're dealing with tough issues all day, is there anything you do to relax? Do you listen to the Beatles, go for a walk? What is it you do, Fatma?
Yeah, so for me, I love music. I just love to put on a really nice, relaxing R&B playlist, play my saxophone, and I also do kickboxing. So that's really good to just like let all the frustrations out.
Yep.
So yeah, this is just what I love to do to recharge. And I would always, just like I said, always love to remind myself of why I'm doing this work in the first place. Why am I working with the intersectionality between women's rights and environmental justice? Why am I working with policy making? Why am I doing all of this in the first place? And it just kind of gets frustrating sometimes because I don't see the change I would love to see. But again, we just got to keep trying.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Lina, what do you do to calm down?
Well, I mentioned my latest passion to upcycle furniture. I think there's a lot of treasure in trash, and so I tend to canvass the New York garbage on occasion and find amazing things and fix them. So I rescue broken things. I think I do that in so many ways, actually, and furniture is just the literal embodiment of that. I also dance in an amazing studio in New York called Forward Space. That's like a nightclub simulation. I feel like I'm in my 20s when I go there. And then I have a dog. And I think dogs actually make us better humans. They know how to human better than humans do, for the most part. They teach us about kindness and compassion and love and being in the now and all the things that that we need to practice and we add to our to-do list and we let slip very often. But all of this to say, it took me a very long time to understand the need for what we call self-care. And I think it's a constant process. It's something that I learn more as I grow. Now I'm 25 years in this work, and I'm finally starting to figure out what switches me off and how to diffuse all those tensions so that I can go farther and faster, because the idea is that I'm more useful to people if I'm useful to myself as well.
It's a very, very valid point. So when it comes to dealing with people, did you become more confident as you progressed throughout your career, Lina?
Well, I think you do. Absolutely. I became, confident is one thing and less compromising is another thing. Like, I kind of felt like I didn't really care anymore what people thought. And that's a very liberating thing. I don't know when that happened, but I show up for presentations. I prefer not to prepare because, if I don't know it from the heart and if it's not coming from here, where's it coming from? And I am comfortable making mistakes, and I say I don't know all the time if I don't know. And I feel like it's okay to mess it up, and I'm more comfortable in what I've done and who I am and the experience that I've accumulated. And so I guess that brings a certain confidence, but that also is like, we don't have the time to waste feeling insecure or uncomfortable or afraid to take up space or, step into our own power or whatever it is. Like, we need to be taking up a lot of space. And that's okay. And I think that's great. And we need to not apologize for it at all. Just, do whatever it is that you think needs doing, and you go out there and do it. And that for me was also very liberating. I found that there are 8,000 things that I cannot do that I absolutely suck at, and I don't mind. Like, I'm just not going to do those things. But there are like 2, maybe 3 things that I'm good at, and I know those things, and I'm going to enjoy doing those things and hopefully deliver them to people in a way that is meaningful and in a way that has some positive impact, because ultimately that's what I want.
Absolutely. So Fatma, is there any advice you can give for girls being held back by cultural norms?
Yeah, I think just having like a vision, not necessarily like a full picture of what you want to do, but just enough to give you a push, because if you're fighting against culture norms, honestly, you're going to face a lot. You're going to face a lot of opposition. You're going to face a lot of people telling you, no, you can't do that. So you got to be able from the bottom of your heart, you got to love what you want to do. You just got to believe in yourself and believe that you can do it in the first place. And then, I don't know, like, talk to people around you. For example, if the opposition is coming from your parents, then you got to talk to them with the language that they would understand and that they would appreciate. You can't like go to, if you're 18, you can't go to a 6-year-old man and talk to him with terminologies that he would categorize as Western. And in that case, honestly, the opposition is going to be a lot harder. So I believe is the first thing, like I said, you got to know exactly what you want to do. You got to believe in yourself and believe that you can do it, and then learn how to talk to people in their own language. And you can't find all cultural norms at once, but step by step you can do what you want. And that's the honestly the most important thing to know, because if you try to push all of that at once and you can't, then it might affect your willingness to do this in the first place, and you might feel that you can't do it or that you did not try hard enough. But you got to know that you can't do all of that at once, and you just got to take it step by step, and it will happen eventually.
Absolutely. Lina, do you have any advice for that language that Fatma was just talking on, how to start those conversations?
Oh, Fatma put it beautifully. The idea of meeting people where they are, taking on one battle at a time, recognizing that you can't win everything, but you're going to keep fighting anyway. I mean, what did Mary say? She said you have to stand out. Right? I mean, she stood up and she said, you know what, I'm going to do this. I'm going to let my work do the talking, and I'm going to show people that I can defy these stereotypes. Yes, a woman can be a sports photographer. Of course she can. So what? And what I love also is, if you look back at your tagline, you guys, hate, what are you going to do about it? Like, the onus is on us. There's a sense of responsibility to do something, and the U is big and bold at all caps, and you cannot ignore it and you cannot avoid it, because you have a responsibility to do something. So what are you going to do about it? And I think the other thing is to really understand how deeply embedded these inequalities are, right? If you don't know them, if you're not educated, if you're not aware, if you don't see them, you cannot change them. Once you see them, you will never unsee them. And in doing that, you can fight them. But if you don't know, if you choose not to know, if you live with your blinders on, or you think everything is fine, then you'll never be effective. You're missing out on a massive opportunity to make change for people that are, it might not be you or your family, it could, it could be the next generation, but there's got to be better than this. We have to believe that we can be better than this. And I think that's critical as well.
Absolutely. Is there anything else either one of you would like to add or would like to say to our Global Youth Reporters or audience watching? One last thing to end on. Fatma, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I would just love to say that, well, growing up in a Middle Eastern culture, it always made me, growing up as a people pleaser, I was always taught to please my parents, to please my elders, despite what I personally want. And fortunately for me, growing up, I learned to overcome that. I learned to overcome these small things that not just our culture, because that's happening everywhere in different forms, but the inequalities that women face every day, the intersectionality of it with everything, environmental justice, policy making, health insurance, for example, or public health, everything, and how deeply embedded they are, just as Lina said. And it's just really hard to overcome these, but one step at a time, and starting by yourself and starting by educating your younger brothers. This is the generation we're trying to bring up. If you have a younger brother, please save him. Basically, please save him from the cultural norms and the inequalities that they're just being pushed into a cycle, and maybe they don't know. They're too young to know, but their brains, they are being systemized to just into the oppression, into the gendered gap, into the boxes that they're trying to fit us in, whether we're male or female or non-binary. We're all being put into boxes. So I believe it's starting with ourselves and starting to help the generation that's really what we're trying to do. And yeah, I just hope we see some change in our lifetime. We will.
Well,
Lina, do you have anything else to add?
Well, it's this. I think the fight ahead of us is long and it's hard and it's not pretty, but you've got to have courage and you really have to be in it with the belief that we're going to win it. And the idea is that no one is going to open the door for you. You need to have the courage to push that door open yourself. And if there's no door, you go get a saw and or a nail file. You get whatever you have, and with all of your force, you create a door. You open it and you leave it open for others. So do this for yourself. Have the courage to know what it is you want and where you're going, and look behind you and bring others in. Once that door is open, you'll never close it. So I think we've got to really have a lot of courage and perseverance. And it's that anger that gives us courage, the anger, the sense of injustice that we're living with, and the idea that we deserve better. It is that knowledge that keeps us going. And I think, like I said, once that door is open, the flood is going to come in, and it is going to be incredible to watch. And I certainly hope it happens in my lifetime.
Absolutely. So keep going. Keep going.
For sure. We are getting better.
Yeah.
It's worth saying that we are getting better. And as a self-appointed oldie, I look at Fatima, I look at you, I look at the young generation, and I think I can retire now. I can go canvas the garbage and pick up some furniture and paint things, because you guys are doing it, and you will do it. You will complete the job that we weren't able to complete. And I'm going to be on the sidelines applauding wildly.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll be happy to see you at the finish line. So thank you to everyone at home for watching. Thank you to you both so much for joining. This has been a wonderful conversation that I wish we could continue maybe one day. For everyone at home watching, please remember that you can follow us on our social media platforms such as Instagram, Facebook at Team Harmony 2020. So until next time, thank you all so much. Enjoy the rest of your evening.